Hi, Chibi Neko here, and it's been a few days since I finished playing Final Fantasy 16. I wanted the experience to simmer for a day or so, especially the ending, because I want to give my precise thoughts on this game. So, FF16, whew, it's a lot to take in. I had a fantastic time with this game. It's not my first M-rated Final Fantasy game that I played. That was Type 0, and I was mesmerized by it. Giving a game a M rating is really a respect to the player because it means you want to tell a mature story that is grounded in realism in some situations, even though this is a fantasy. There's just some holy shit moments that you really want the characters to say what they're really thinking, and language is realistic, because trust me, you hear it a lot in this game. This also amps up the emotion you can experience. Type 0 was the first game in which I was very conflicted during the final boss fight. I knew what would happen if I won, and I bawled like a baby at the ending. I felt some of the same conflict in 16. When you understand the lore and what the protagonist is going through, you get a sense of the consequences of your victory. I will talk about the ending and my theories on it, but not until later because I want to try to avoid spoilers as much as possible. So I will give you a warning once I get to that point. I love the throwbacks this game has to Final Fantasy Tactics, my most favorite game of all time. The primary antagonist is the same namesake, Cid in 16 is a callback to Thunder God Cid. When you play this game, you will know what I mean. The story is highly political until you learn that there's something much larger at play here. It also heavily critiques religion. Now, I don't want to get too much into detail about that, but the game does go into detail on the negative impact religion can have on society and individuals. And the focus is to break free and allow humankind to make their own choices and live life on their own terms. To live life and to die, everything of that nature. That's how you know how good of a game Final Fantasy Tactics was when a lot of it bleeds into a numbered Final Fantasy. With all that being said, I give the story a thumbs up. The game has a lot of resources to catch up on the lore, but the best thing about this is you don't have to read into it like you had to do in Final Fantasy 13. Homework. So much homework. The main gameplay in 16 gives you all the information you need to understand what's going on without having to go into all these data logs. But the option is there, hence the on your own terms theme. The characters. So this is where there might be some divide. Clive is our main hero. His story starts off as a tale of revenge, but turns into a hero and his merry men fighting for freedom kind of guy. Ben Starr's voice gives Clive an emotional depth that makes me really feel for this guy. He loses a lot and he gains more, but once you get into the middle of the game, Clive becomes more of a fetch boy. He's just moving things along for all the side characters that are doing all the background work, while he's basically the sword that cuts things. However, when something does happen that's had a positive or negative impact on him, I was invested enough to know, to want to know what happens next. So I consider Clive to be a successful protagonist. Better than Noctis. Way better than Noctis. Jill. Jill is boring. Okay? Look, just hear me out, okay. I promise she was more complicated than that, okay? Jill is boring, but she has no reason to be. She and Clive go way back, and look, they're not like Cloud and Tifa, okay? Like, these two actually were friends when they were kids. Oh boy, I'm gonna be in trouble for this. Clive and Jill have a sibling-type relationship as kids, and there's a time gap in which they are separated, but they do get reunited. I say that in air quotes because it really doesn't feel that way. It takes a while before you have a meaningful conversation with her and she joins your party, and I'm not gonna lie, most of the time I forgot she was even with me. That's not good. Jill has a great design. She has an established relationship with the protagonist. She's done great things like kicking ass, freezing slaves, slaying the person responsible for her suffering. Her personality reflects a hard life she's had during her separation from Clive, so we can't harsh her on that. But all she does now is agree and go along with what Clive says. The problem, I think, is because we're not there for her backstory. Everything we know is hearsay. Call me old-fashioned, but in storytelling, you tend to sympathize and relate to a character more when you spend time with them. There's a section in the game in which you travel back to the kingdom in which Jill was enslaved during her separation from Clive, and she said she wanted to meet her old friends, which you do. The reunion is joyful and all, but it didn't really affect me. Once she does free her friends, you don't hear from them again. Well, that sucks. I mean, they would have made for a nice addition to your headquarters. Jill definitely would have benefited from her own playable section of the game. Show us firsthand what she'd been through, so we would have gotten more attachment, more, sympathize more with her. This character, to me, was a missed opportunity, and I don't blame anyone for thinking that Jill was nothing more than a pretty face in the game. And it sucks, because I felt like the relationship between her and Clive had no anticipation or payoff. While I was playing the game, my husband, he would joke along. He would say, "Oh, just make out already and be done with it." Jill is uninteresting, and she has no right to be. So, shame on you, Square. You really could have done better with this character. You really could. The side characters, in my opinion, are amongst the best in all Final Fantasy. This Cid is the best Cid, hands down. Don't argue with me on this one. This is the best Cid, the best. Ralph Ingston's deep voice just ignites his character, and he oozes with charm. He almost has a Robin Hood type vibe to him, to be honest. Dion is another standout character. He's very complex. He has a fierce loyalty to his father, his kingdom, but it only goes as long as justice isn't infringed. He doesn't hesitate to go into battle knowing his transformation into an icon will affect his health. So, I'm willing to bet, I'm only going by my memory here. If I were to play the game over again or watch, a playthrough, I'll probably learn, pick up more things on him. But the things that Dion goes through, oh my goodness, it makes you wonder, how does he keep going? But the answer is right there. It's just his fierce sense of loyalty and justice does not, he just keeps going. He has a purpose, and in my opinion, he's definitely one of the better non-playable characters in all Final Fantasy. You just want to know more about him. My overall favorite character, believe it or not, is Gav. He's smart, he's brave, he's sneaky, he's there for the entire adventure. He has that presence that anyone could be friends with him. The voice acting, it just nails him. I just love this guy so much. Gav is the one guy that I could definitely sit in a bar and have a drink with for hours on end. He's just so interesting. And in fact, you do know a lot, you learn a lot about him throughout the game. So Gav, to me, best boy. Regarding the antagonist, I'd be lying if I didn't say he was a bit of a disappointment. There is a reason and a motivation to defeat him, but you don't really feel the weight. The side antagonists, to me, were far more interesting. These are nations at war, and you do learn more about the rulers that are pulling the strings in the background. But there are villains that you just love to hate, and when you fight them or see them getting their just desserts, is so satisfying. So that's what makes a successful antagonist. If you just want to get back at them. But that only happens to the side antagonist. The primary one, I get the urgency to kill him, but I just didn't hate him. It's not like Sephiroth. I was like, I get that bastard. It wasn't anything like that at all. So, I'm going to say half on this one for the antagonists. Combat. While reading preliminary reviews for 16, the combat was heavily critiqued, which made me nervous. I am a turn-based player at my core, but I can adapt to most action-based games. Most? I'm looking at you, Star Ocean 6. But I thought it was fine. On the surface, it looks like a hack and slash system, but you do get to learn more magic and skills. You can't use all of them, but that's where the customization comes in. It's kind of like forcing both halves of your brain to work on the same function at the same time. The right side of the controller is the physical attacks, while the right side is magic. Using both in unison can be tricky starting off, but once you have it mastered, it adds a lot of depth to the combat that can add some RPG-like strategy. After learning certain skills and spells, I knew what I wanted my character to do, and I was dodging, slashing, and stunning my enemies like a pro. I haven't died once in the game, and I did all the hunts. The scores had some mixed reception as well. Masayoshi Soken composed the soundtrack, and he's not a novice. He composed the score for Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn, and he collaborated with Nobuo Uematsu on the original Final Fantasy XIV. Look, that game's soundtrack was fine, okay? I know the game sucked, but the music, there's nothing wrong with it, okay? But I love the soundtrack for 16. It had a real cinematic sound, it had medieval beats that fit the setting and its battle themes. Oh man. When you fight these bosses, you will know. Classics like the Crystal theme and Final Fantasy theme, they're there. However, there is no Chocobo theme. Oh, you do get the ride of Chocobo, but all you get is the 3-second chime of the theme when you mount. That's it. That does not count, alright? Square, you have shamed the soundtrack by excluding it. Soka-san, I know you could have come up with a suiting sound for Chocobo riding. I know you can. You were able to do it with other themes. I know you can do it with this one. If there's a patch for 16, it has to include the full Chocobo theme. Has to. Now, the theme Tsuki no Meteya has a sound of yearning, redemption, mourning, and freedom all wrapped into one. It's hard to describe, so I'll have a link to the song in the description, the music video. There's no spoilers in it, so you can watch the video if you want. My favorite tracks in the whole game is Away, Ascension, Final Flame, Titan Lost, and All Is One. And the theme song, Tsuki no Meteya, I really like that song too. I listened to it numerous times. Okay, so with all that being said, I love Final Fantasy 16 overall. Great game. Glad I played it. It was wonderful. But now I'm going to get into the ending. So this is where the spoilers start. If you have not played the game and you want to, I recommend you stop here. If you're just curious and just don't care, go ahead and listen. So, alright, the ending. Here we go. So we know that throughout the game, the goal is to free humankind by allowing them to make their own choices and live on their terms. This means having to destroy the mother crystals and ending all magic. Magic is the gift that the bearers are able to perform, but the curse that comes with that will cost them their own lives if they keep using it. Having this curse also means that the bearers are treated very poorly and abused for their power. They're heavily discriminated against, and they are often slaves. Dominants are different because being chosen by an icon is seen as a blessing, but oftentimes it means that they're being used as a weapon or deterrent against other countries. Using the icon's power also comes at a cost. Each time the dominant transforms, it will put a physical toll on their body. Clive is different though. He can claim a portion of each icon's power and use it without any real consequences. He is the vessel that Ultima's been waiting for. Destroying the mother crystals means the destruction of magic, so bearers and dominants will be free from their blessing/curse. It would also mean that everyone will have to earn an honest living because using the crystals has made them lazy. When you think about it, you can see this in the side quest involving Blackthorn helping his old village create fire pits without the use of crystals and magic, and in the end credits scene, where people now have to light fires the old-fashioned way because magic, it no longer exists. It's now a myth, it's now a legend. So like in Final Fantasy VI, the main cast is aware that killing Kefka will destroy the Espers and magic by extension. This also made them ask the question on what will happen to Terra, who is half Esper. So Clive knows that killing Ultima will end all magic and icons, but because he's a mix of all of them, he and everyone else isn't really sure what will happen to him once Ultima is gone. The ending of Final Fantasy XVI is the most ambiguous and open-ended ending I've ever seen. It definitely took elements from Final Fantasy Tactics in the sense that a lot of it is open to interpretation. Square did this to keep the players guessing and talking about it, and I mean, it worked. I mean, we're doing it right now, right? And I'm sure it's going to keep on happening in the future. So let's get into the guts of this, okay? Dion, Joshua, and Clive. Are they dead? Are they alive? Nobody knows. Everyone has theories, though, and I have my own personal theories as to how they could have lived or how they could have died. So feel free to leave your theories in the comments below, because I'm very interested to know what you all think. Let's start with Dion. When Dion returns to his human form, we see that he has the same injuries as he did after his fight with Ifrit Risen. Some blood on his head, nothing fatal. My theory in which he lived is because he fell before Clive killed Ultima, meaning if Dion had enough strength left, he could have used Bahamut's power just enough to fly to the ground and pass out to recover later. Dion is also a Dragoon, and from what I understand, they do not suffer height damage. I know it's a long shot, but it could happen. Theory on why he's dead? Well, that's a long drop. Sometimes it's that simple. Next is the case of Joshua. My theory on which he lived is based on Clive's victory against Ultima. Joshua gave his full Phoenix power to Clive, and after defeating Ultima, Clive absorbed his power, basically becoming a god at this point. Now, earlier in the game, we see Joshua healing his brother's injuries, saying that the Phoenix can only heal the flesh and the spirit is on its own. So under normal circumstances, casting rays should not do anything. This is basically a case, though, of it doesn't hurt to try. Clive is basically a god now, so really, what does he have to lose at this point? So he casts rays. Joshua's body is healed, but we don't see anything beyond that. Now, he could have recovered the same way Dion could have, and Joshua lived to write the Final Fantasy book we see after the credits. Now, my theory that Joshua is dead again goes back to what he said about the Phoenix could only heal the flesh and not the spirit. The body is healed, we see this, but we don't see any breathing, movement, nothing. So why did Clive heal his brother's body knowing it would not revive him? My guess it's Clive's way of bringing dignity to Joshua's body. Joshua had used himself to keep Ultima sealed away for as long as possible. It spread through his body like a poison, leaving him disfigured and having to physically hide it. So in Clive's mind, healing Joshua's body would at least get rid of the remaining evidence of Ultima and bring peace to them both. Okay, now let's get to Clive. Is he alive? He could be. The reason he could be alive, again, comes to the fact that magic is gone now. So he would not be affected by the bear's curse. He simply could have passed out from exhaustion. And the reason his hand turned to stone is because he overused his magic during his fight with Ultima and used magic on his brother's body. After one last burst of magic, his hand turned to stone due to the curse, but magic could have crossed over into non-existence in that moment, so the rest of his body would not be able to turn to stone. And in the case of Joshua's death, the book we see in the end could have been written by Clive using his brother's name, which makes sense because Clive took on Cid's name to continue his cause, so it was natural that he would use his brother's name as a means of honoring him. Now, the case for Clive being dead could be as simple as a result of the bear's curse going into overdrive now that he's taken all the burden of magic onto himself from absorbing Ultima and overusing it. His body would turn to stone first, then magic would cross over into non-existence. Dominants have the ability to sense each other, so when we see Jill not being able to sense Clive, we take this as a sign that he is gone. But at the same time, with icons now being gone, they would not be able to sense each other anyway. It all depends when the magic disappeared. Was it before or after Clive turned to stone? However, Jill comes to that conclusion anyway when she sees the star that she prays to for Clive's safe return disappears. So she cries and assumes the worst. So yeah, very open-ended, open to interpretation. I like an ending that does that, that keeps everyone talking about it, coming with all of these theories, but in the end, someday I would like a concrete answer to, are they alive? Are they dead? What really happened? I hope we find out. But overall, I really love Final Fantasy XVI. Do I recommend it? Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I got a PS5, but I am looking forward to Final Fantasy Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Can't wait to play that one, and once I do, I'll talk about that one as well. So, yes, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Have you played it? What's your interpretation of the ending? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one, whenever that is. This is Neko signing out.